The sky above the city burned with fire trails of warships cutting through the clouds. The sound of cannons echoed across towers that once stood tall and proud. For the first time in centuries, the human colonies faced an enemy they were told would never dare cross into their space. Yet here they were, the Sindari, blue-skinned warriors with sharp eyes and sharper weapons, descending like shadows on wings of steel. People screamed, sirens howled, and smoke painted the skyline with the colors of fear. In the middle of this chaos stood one man who did not run. His name was Kale, a soldier who had already fought too many battles and lost too many friends. His arms rested on a cracked railing high above the streets, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. The city below crumbled, but he leaned forward with a calm grin, the kind of grin that made even death pause for a second. Across from him stood one of the Sindari assassins, a woman cloaked in black leather armor, her hood pulled just enough to shadow her silver hair and piercing eyes. She was young, beautiful, but her expression carried the weight of someone trained to kill without hesitation. Her hand was steady as she raised her sleek black pistol and pointed it straight at his head. The distance between them was only a breath, and the sound of war around them seemed to fade until only their voices mattered. Her voice was smooth, almost cold when she spoke. "Any last words, human?" The words were not asked as a kindness, but as ritual. For the Sindari, the moment before death was a test of spirit. Most begged, some cursed, others wept. She expected one of these. She expected fear, but Kale only smirked wider. His eyes met hers, steady, sharp, unbroken. He leaned just a little closer, his arm still resting on the railing like he was speaking to an old friend at a bar. "Yeah," he said softly, his voice cutting through the air like steel. "Safety's on." For a fraction of a second, the assassin's eyes flickered with confusion. Her finger curled harder around the trigger, but instinct made her glance at her weapon. Kale's grin deepened. In that single heartbeat, she realized the human wasn't afraid of her gun, wasn't afraid of her kind, wasn't even afraid of death itself. That realization struck deeper than any blade. The sound of engines roared above them as Sindari fighters streaked across the city sky, hunted by human defense craft. Explosions lit up the horizon, but Kale and the assassin stood locked in their private war of silence and smirks. He did not flinch. She did not lower her gun. Yet in her chest, something unfamiliar stirred uncertainty. Kale tilted his head slightly, watching her. "You came all this way to kill me. But tell me, do you even know why your people started this war?" His voice carried no fear, only curiosity, as if he was the one holding the gun. The question cut into her like a hidden blade. The Sindari were taught that humans were dangerous beasts, reckless destroyers of worlds. They were told to wipe them out before they spread further. But standing here, looking into Kale's unyielding eyes, she saw no beast. She saw a man who laughed at the edge of death. A man who faced her without trembling, her grip tightened. She should have fired already. She wanted to pull the trigger and prove her strength. But his words had planted something inside her. A hesitation. A crack in the armor of her mind. Kale leaned back slightly, his smile unshaken. "You're brave," he said, almost as if he respected her. "But you don't look like a killer to me. You look like someone who hasn't figured out what side she's on yet." Her lips pressed together, her breath caught in her throat. She hated that his words reached her. She hated that she felt anything at all. Around them, the war raged, but in this single moment, nothing existed except his grin and her trembling heart. Then, suddenly, the balcony shook as a blast struck the tower nearby. Debris rained down, and the assassin's stance faltered. Kale moved not away, but toward her. His hand brushed against the barrel of her gun, lowering it just enough as he pulled her out of the path of falling stone. She stumbled into his chest, her weapon still gripped tightly, but no longer pointed at his head. For the first time, she looked at him not as prey, not as an enemy, but as something else she could not yet name. Kale whispered close to her ear, voice steady as the ground shook around them. "If you're going to shoot me, do it because you want to. Not because they told you to." Her breath trembled. She had never faced a human before. She had never been this close to one. And she had never felt so unsure of her orders. The war outside screamed for her attention, but all she could hear was his calm words echoing inside her mind. The blast faded, leaving smoke rising from the street below. Kale and the Sundari assassin stood close, the weight of war pressing down on the crumbling balcony. She pushed herself away from him quickly, her silver hair falling across her glowing blue face as she raised her pistol again. But this time her hand was not as steady as before. Kale tilted his head, still smiling like a man who had nothing to lose. "Go on," he said softly, as if daring her. "Show me that you're just another soldier with no choice." Her sharp eyes narrowed, but his words cut into her thoughts like fire through ice. She wanted to silence him, yet something inside refused. Her people had drilled her since childhood to kill without hesitation. Yet here she was, caught in hesitation. "Why?" The sky thundered again. Human fighters clashed with Sundari warships above, their shadows racing across the city ruins. Sirens blared, voices cried out from the streets. The war was everywhere, but on this balcony, the assassin felt trapped in a smaller battle one she was not trained for. Kale leaned against the railing again, his casual posture mocking the danger. "What's your name?" he asked suddenly, his tone light, almost playful. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Sundari soldiers never gave their names to prey. It was forbidden. Yet she found herself whispering before she could stop. "Vera." Kale's grin widened. "Vera," he repeated slowly, like he wanted to keep it. "That's a strong name. Stronger than the gun you're holding." Her jaw tightened. He was twisting her, bending her focus. She wanted to end it, yet she could not pull the trigger. His eyes were steady, daring her, but not with arrogance. There was something different, something strange in the way he looked at her. Not as an enemy, not as a beast, but as a person. Vera took a deep breath. "You humans think you're clever. You joke while you're about to die. But I could kill you here now. No one would even know." Kale shrugged. "Maybe, but then again, maybe that's why you haven't done it yet." His voice was calm, quiet, but every word pierced her like an arrow. She hated how her heart raced. She hated how he smiled as if he understood her better than her own commanders. A loud crash shook the air as another blast struck a nearby tower. The structure groaned, metal twisting and falling. Kale pushed away from the railing and glanced at the sky. Human reinforcements were arriving. A fleet of armored carriers roared toward the city, their weapons glowing. Breaking through the Sundari lines, Vera's cum device on her wrist beeped sharply. A voice barked in her language, ordering her to retreat. The humans were pushing back harder than expected. Her squad had already fallen back. She was alone with her target. Her hand trembled as she lowered the pistol a fraction. She could not explain the storm inside her. Killing Kale should have been easy. It should have been done minutes ago. Yet something about him, the way he stood against her, the way he spoke without fear, kept her from finishing the mission. Kale watched her closely. He saw the flicker in her eyes, the war inside her. His grin softened, his voice losing its edge for the first time. "You don't have to do this, Vera." She froze. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever told her she had a choice. The cum beeped again, sharper this time, demanding she leave. Her orders were clear: kill or retreat. But neither felt right anymore. Kale stepped closer, slow, unthreatening. He stood just inches from her, his chest rising with steady breath. "If you walk away now," he whispered, "you might find out the truth they've been hiding from you." Her pistol wavered. She could feel the heat of his body near hers. the calmness in his voice wrapping around her like a shield against the chaos outside. She hated it. She needed it. Finally, with a sharp breath, she pulled the pistol back and holstered it at her side. Her heart raced as she whispered, "This isn't over." Kale chuckled softly. "I'd be disappointed if it was." Before she could answer, another explosion ripped through the city. Sundari's ships broke away, retreating into the clouds. Human fighters gave chase. The war was shifting, but Kale's eyes never left hers, and for the first time since the invasion began, Vera did not know if she was fighting for her people or against herself. The night fell heavy on the city. Smoke rose from broken towers, lit by the glow of distant fires and the silent flashing of patrol ships weaving across the skies. The battle above had slowed, but the war was far from over. Down on the shattered balcony, Kale remained standing, his arms resting against the railing as if the chaos around him had no weight. Vera lingered in the shadows. She had pulled back after her cum demanded retreat, but her steps had not carried her far. She told herself it was because she needed to observe, to make sure the human did not escape. Yet deep inside, she knew it was because something about him held her there. Kale's voice broke the silence. "You're still here, aren't you?" Her chest tightened. She should have left. She should have vanished with her people. Instead, she stepped forward, her hood falling back to reveal her silver hair under the fire-lit sky. The look in her eyes was sharper now, but not the same cold edge as before. "You humans," she muttered. "You don't even realize the storm you've started. My people will not stop." Kale turned, his smile faint but steady. "Storms come and go. But people? People can change." Vera frowned. "You think words can change war?" He shook his head. "No, but maybe they can change the people who fight it." Her fingers brushed against her holstered pistol. She wanted to deny it, but the memory of his calm voice when the gun was against his head still echoed inside her. No one had ever looked at her that way. No one had ever dared to smile at death like he did. Kale leaned closer, his voice low. "Tell me, Vera, have you ever wondered why they tell you to hate us?" Her eyes flashed. "Because you are dangerous. Because you spread like fire. Because you ruin worlds." The words came quickly, too quickly, like something memorized. Kale tilted his head. "That's what they told you. But what do you believe?" She froze. The answer should have been easy. Yet it wasn't. All her training, all her orders, every scar and every mission had been built on the belief that humans were monsters. But looking at Kale now calm, steady, alive, she could not see a monster. Before she could answer, a sharp crack echoed through the air. A sniper shot slammed into the railing inches from Kale's hand, sending sparks into the night. He didn't flinch. Vera spun instantly, her pistol drawn. Scanning the rooftops, another shot rang out, this time aimed at her. Kale moved without thought, pulling her down behind the railing. The round shattered stone where her head had been. She stared at him, wide-eyed. "Why did you?" "Snipers don't care who they hit." Kale cut her off, his voice low but urgent. "Looks like both of us are targets tonight." More shots cracked in the distance. Whoever was firing wasn't Sundari regulars. The precision was too clean, the weapons too advanced. Vera narrowed her eyes. "Not my people," she whispered. Kale's smirk returned faintly. "Then I guess we've both got enemies on this roof." The air thickened with tension. They crouched together, shoulder to shoulder, as rounds sparked off the stone around them. For a moment, they weren't human and Sundari. They weren't enemies. They were just two people trapped under the same fire. Vera steadied her pistol, her sharp eyes scanning the shadows. Kale picked up a broken metal shard and peered over the ledge, using the reflection to find the shooters. His calmness surprised her more than the danger. "There," he whispered, pointing to a rooftop across the street. 3 figures moved in the darkness, their rifles gleaming faintly. Vera's breath slowed, her training taking over. She lined her weapon with deadly precision, but before she fired, Kale's hand touched hers gently, lowering it just an inch. She glared at him. "What are you doing?" His eyes locked on hers. "Think, who are they? Why would someone want both of us dead?" The question struck deep. If it wasn't his people, and it wasn't hers, then who? And why now? The rooftop shook again with fire. Kale and Vera ducked lower, their faces closed in the dim light. For the first time, Vera felt the heat of his presence not as an enemy's, but as an anchor against fear. "We'll figure it out," Kale said firmly. "But right now we need to move, together," her breath caught. She hated that part of her agreed. She hated even more that she whispered, "Fine." The shots grew louder. Their war was no longer just between human and Sundari. Something darker moved in the shadows, and Kale and Vera were now bound together by survival. The night air grew heavier as the gunfire echoed across the rooftops. Sparks lit the crumbling balcony where Kale and Vera crouched, their shoulders brushing as they pressed against the stone. The mysterious snipers did not relent, their bullets tearing chunks of metal and concrete into the air. Kale glanced at her, with that same calm grin she'd grown to hate and admire. "We can sit here and let them box us in. Or we can fight our way out. Your call." Vera's silver hair shifted in the hot wind as she reloaded her weapon. Her heart beat fast, but her hands were steady now. "We move," she said firmly. "But you follow me," Kale smirked. "Lead the way, princess." Her glare could have cut through steel, but she didn't argue. With a sudden burst, Vera leapt from cover and sprinted across the balcony, rolling behind a broken beam. Kale was right behind her, fast, silent, moving like a man who had done this too many times before. Bullets sliced the air as they crossed to the next rooftop, sliding down a bent girder into the shadows below. The city groaned like a dying beast, smoke and fire painting the skyline red. Kale kept low, his eyes sharp, scanning for the shooters. Vera moved with predator's grace, every motion precise, but Kale noticed her breathing, noticed the flicker in her eyes. She was trained, deadly, but not unbreakable. They found cover behind a collapsed wall. Vera pressed her back against the stone, her pistol raised, listening to the faint footsteps above. Kale crouched beside her, his voice low and steady. "3 of them. Moving together. Professional. Not Sundari," she whispered. "Not your people either," Kale nodded. "Which means someone doesn't want either of us walking out of here." The thought lingered heavy in the air. For the first time, Vera realized she and the human were pawns in a game much bigger than orders and duty. The footsteps grew closer. Kale tapped her shoulder and mouthed, "Now." She moved first, springing from the shadows, her pistol flashing in the night. One sniper fell instantly, struck clean through the chest. The other 2 scattered, firing wild shots that ripped into the wall. Kale darted forward, tackling one into the ground, his fist driving hard into the masked soldier's jaw. The man went limp, dropping his rifle. The last sniper took position on a higher ledge, aiming down at them both. Vera raised her pistol, but the angle was too sharp. Kale snatched the fallen rifle and slid across the stone, firing with sharp precision. The bullet struck the ledge, shattering it. The sniper slipped, screaming as he fell into the smoke below. Silence returned, broken only by the distant thunder of ships above. Breathing hard, Vera wiped sweat from her brow. She glanced at Kale, who stood over the fallen soldier, pulling away his mask. The face beneath was not Sundari, not human, it was something else. A pale creature with sharp ridges and sunken eyes. Vera's eyes widened. That's impossible. They're not supposed to exist outside the outer fringe. Kale's expression darkened. Looks like someone brought them here anyway. The weight of it settled on them both. There was another faction at play in this war, one neither Sundari nor human had expected. Whoever they were, They wanted both sides broken. Kale tossed the mask aside and looked at her. Guess we're in deeper than we thought. Vera tightened her grip on her weapon, trying to steady the storm inside her. She had been raised to see humans as monsters. Yet tonight, standing beside one, she was discovering monsters of an entirely different kind. For a moment, neither spoke. The war around them roared, but in that silence, they shared something unspoken, an understanding that survival now meant fighting together. Kale finally broke the silence with a faint smile. Not bad shooting back there. Her sharp eyes flicked toward him. Don't get comfortable, human. When this is over, you're still my enemy. Kale chuckled softly. Yeah? Then maybe I'll enjoy the war a little longer. Vera's chest tightened, but she turned away before he could see it. The night was far from over, and the shadows were growing darker. The city was quieter now, though not with peace, only with exhaustion. Fires burned in the distance, smoke rising in twisting columns, and the cries of the wounded echoed through broken streets. Kale and Vera moved through the ruins together, silent but alert. Every step carried weight, not only from the battle they had survived, but from the strange truth they had uncovered. The pale bodies of the snipers lingered in Vera's mind. They were not human. They were not Sundari. They were something worse, something whispered about in war camps as shadows from the fringe. Her commanders had called them ghosts, a rumor meant to scare children. Yet she had seen one fall tonight, its blood staining the concrete. Kale glanced at her as they passed under a shattered bridge. You're thinking about them. Her silver hair caught the faint glow of burning wreckage as she nodded. If they are here, then this war isn't only between us. Someone wants our people to destroy each other while they strike from the dark. Kale smirked faintly. Looks like we're both puppets on someone else's strings. She hated that his words made sense. For years, her people had spoken of humans as the only threat. Yet tonight, fighting side by side with one, she had seen another truth. Her pistol hung heavy at her side, but not because she wanted to use it on him. Instead, she wondered if she could ever see him as only an enemy again. They stopped at the base of an old tower. Its walls cracked, its windows shattered. Kale leaned against the stone and tilted his head at her. So what happens now, Vera? You shoot me and finish your mission? Or do you admit your mission doesn't make sense anymore? Her sharp eyes met his. You talk too much, and yet, he said with a grin, you keep listening. The wind shifted, carrying the low hum of engines. Vera's instincts flared. She grabbed Kale's arm and pulled him into the shadows as a Sundari patrol ship drifted above the streets, its lights sweeping the ruins. She pressed close to him, her breath brushing against his neck as they stayed still. The beam of light passed, and the ship moved on, not noticing them. Kale raised an eyebrow. You could have let them see me. Would have saved you the trouble. Her voice was low. I don't know why I didn't. For a long moment, they stared at each other in the silence of the ruined street. The war outside seemed far away. Kale's grin faded, replaced with something steadier, something almost serious. You're not like the others, he said. Her chest tightened. She should have pushed him away, should have drawn her pistol, should have reminded herself of her orders. But she didn't. She whispered instead, and you're not like the monster they told me you'd be. The words hung between them like a fragile thread. She looked away quickly, ashamed of what she had admitted. Yet Kale only nodded, as if he understood. Before either could speak again, a sharp sound split the night. A screech, low and guttural, carried across the ruins. Vera froze, her blood turning cold. No, Kale's eyes narrowed. What is it? Her voice was tense. Hunters. The fringe creatures don't fight like soldiers. They hunt in packs. If those snipers were scouts, the rest will come. As if to answer her, another screech echoed, this time closer. Shadows shifted between the ruins, shapes moving on clawed limbs, their glowing eyes flickering in the dark. Kale pulled a knife from his belt, his smirk returning despite the danger. "Well, looks like we've got company." Vera raised her pistol, her sharp eyes scanning the dark. "This time, human, stay close. If you get killed, I don't want to explain it later." Kale chuckled. "Worried about me already?" She ignored his grin, though heat rose to her cheeks. The hunters moved faster now, their forms slipping in and out of the smoke. Kale and Vera stood back to back, weapons ready, the firelight glinting off their faces. For the first time, they were not Sundari and human. They were not soldier and target. They were just two warriors, standing together against the monsters that wanted them both dead. Asterisk. The ruins trembled with the sound of claws scraping across stone. The shadows thickened as glowing eyes emerged from the smoke. Dozens of them, circling the broken tower where Kale and Vera stood. The hunters from the fringe had arrived, and they were not hiding anymore. Kale tightened his grip on his knife, his smirk sharp even in the face of monsters. "Well, Vera, looks like they don't care about sides." Vera's heart pounded, but her hands were steady as she raised her pistol. "Then we make them regret stepping into our war." The first hunter lunged from the darkness, its ridged body twisting as claws reached for Kale. He moved fast, ducking low and driving his blade upward into its chest. The creature shrieked, collapsing in a spasm of limbs. Another leapt at Vera. She fired clean into its skull, the energy blast lighting the night as it dropped at her feet. More came, faster, snarling, their shapes darting between rubble and firelight. The pair moved back to back, their steps in rhythm, their weapons flashing with deadly precision. For every monster that fell, another crawled over the ruins to take its place. Kale's voice rang above the chaos, calm but firm. "If this is how I go, at least I've got decent company." Vera gritted her teeth, blasting another beast apart. "Stop talking and keep fighting." But deep inside, his words struck her. She had spent her whole life seeing humans as the enemy. Yet now, under the red fire of battle, the only one she trusted to guard her back was in. The hunters pressed closer. Kale slashed, kicked, and fought with raw grit, but they were too many. A claw raked across his shoulder, drawing blood. He staggered, yet his grin did not fade. Vera turned, blasting the creature away, her chest tightening as she saw his wound. "Don't fall now, human." Kale wiped the blood with his free hand, his eyes burning. Not planning to, the largest of the hunters stepped forward then, a towering beast with jagged armor-like skin and eyes that glowed like embers. Its roar shook the ruins. The smaller creatures circled back, waiting for their leader's command. Vera steadied her pistol, but Kale touched her arm. "Save it, that thing won't go down easy." She shot him a look. "You have a plan?" He grinned through the blood. "Always," the beast charged. Kale ran straight toward it, ducking past its massive claws. He drove his blade deep into its side, but the creature roared and swung him off like a rag. He hit the ground hard, dust and stone exploding around him. Vera's chest clenched. Without thinking, she leapt forward, firing shot after shot into the beast's face. Its armored hide cracked under the blasts, but it did not fall. It raised a claw to strike her down. Then Kale's voice echoed, rough but steady. "Now, Vera." She saw him kneeling by the rubble, holding a fallen explosive pack from one of the fringe snipers. The blinking light showed only seconds left. With perfect instinct, she fired into the pack just as Kale hurled it toward the beast. The explosion ripped through the ruins, fire and smoke swallowing the monster whole. The other hunters shrieked and fled into the night, their glowing eyes vanishing into the smoke. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of flames. Vera rushed to Kale, kneeling beside him. His arm was torn, blood running down, but he was alive, his grin weak but unbroken. "Told you." "Always a plan." She stared at him, her chest rising and falling fast. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, slowly she holstered her pistol and whispered, "I should kill you now. That was my mission. Kale met her eyes, his smirk fading into something softer. "So why don't you?" Her hand trembled. She could have drawn her weapon. She could have ended it. Instead, she whispered the truth she'd been afraid to admit. "Because you showed me the real enemy." The firelight danced between them. Kale leaned back, wincing from his wound, but his smile returned. "Guess that makes us allies, whether you like it or not." Vera stood, her silver hair falling across her face as she looked out over the burning city. For the first time, she wondered what her people would say if they knew she had spared him. She wondered if they would ever believe that humans were not the monsters. She reached down and helped Kale to his feet. "This war isn't over. But maybe it doesn't have to end the way they want." Kale's hand tightened around hers briefly, steady and warm despite the blood. "Then let's make sure it doesn't." Together, they stepped out of the ruins. Two enemies turned into something else by fire, by survival, and by a truth greater than orders. The war between their people would rage on, but here, tonight, a human and a Sundari had chosen a different path, and that choice would change everything.